Welcome to the Left of Str8 Show, where we talk entertainment, music, books, foodies, and more each week with special guest interviews of interest to the LGBTQ community and our straight allies. Direct from the entertainment capital of Northeast Ohio. Your host, Scott Fullerton, chats with some of your favorite entertainers, celebrities, newsmakers, and behind-the-scenes people across the country and around the world who make it all happen. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and let's start talking.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm honored to introduce a trailblazing black queer comedian who's been cracking up audience from coast to coast for over 20 years now. He's the one and only Mr. Sampson McCormick. Sampson has not only shattered stereotypes, but also captured hearts through his sharp wit and keen observations on life, love, and everything in between. I actually first came across Sampson almost 7 years ago when I first got into podcasting. I was producing and hosting a show called Healing Stigma with my friend Kevin Hogan, and Sampson came on and talked about stories that were quite interesting. And I can't believe it's taken so long to come back. Back then, back in 2014, you were just named one of 12 influential people in 2014. I actually did that interview. I looked it up today just for the heck of it. I did it from my phone in a Taco Bell parking lot because I was not home. And you were, like I said, number 12 today. I am in my basement here on nice video. And you are now one of the top 8 trailblazing comedians ever. So I guess we're both moving up in the world, my friend. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Sampson McCormick. Sampson, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing so great. I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you for having me back.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you on. I mean, we had a great conversation before. We won't go too much into it because we don't have a lot of time today, but you had an amazing story from your time growing up in North Carolina with your mom to going to DC and your stepdad not being the most accepting person of homosexuals at the time to making it to Northern California and everything in between. So I'll make a link to that old interview down below. But it's my pleasure to have you on again, my friend. You're just still killing it 20 years later.
Yes, yes. And I should say, so I actually am from DC. But
Okay.
but for a long time I did claim North Carolina. I still do because that's that's where the roots are. But DC is I'm DC through and through.
Gotcha. I love it. Well, it's exciting to talk about. I mean, let's start by that. I mean, we're talking top 12 back in 2014, top 8 in history. Recently, we had some of the same people on the list: Wanda Sykes, Margaret Cho, some real trailblazers. Um, right now, you're not flipping houses and retired like Ellen does, but you're out on the road all the time. Talk about how you see your career progressing over these last 22 years.
I just keep getting better and better as a person. And so I think that's most important first and foremost. I got into comedy because I really love the art, but it's really challenged me to be a better person in every single way. And so I find that not only am I showing up as a great comedian, but I'm also reinforcing the comedy with, humanitarianism and showing up as best as I can for the community, for underserved populations as well as other queer artists. Coming up, over this 22 years that I've been in the business, nothing's been handed to me. It's been very challenging, and so
I bet.
that's part of what's made me a better person is when you really have to rise to meet certain challenges, you understand the importance of humor. I think humor is really important to rise to meet the challenge of life. And then just as an artist, I don't come from a supportive family. And so not to get too deep, but I do think that it makes a difference to endeavor into any profession or any pursuit that you have, and come from a foundation where your parents tell you, I believe in you, you can do anything you want. And I didn't come from that, and also I didn't have all the resources, but I've made the resources, and I've become very resourceful. And so in doing that, I'm also able to show up for other queer artists as well, so they don't have to, uh, struggle as hard as I've had to.
Exactly. And like you said, you're gigging all over the country, but you've created this amazing YouTube channel with tens of thousands of views covering anything from Black relations tip to Black entertainment, and really have been kind of putting a stamp on what you see the industry from your eyes to be. And that's got to be fulfilling to yourself, but also I bet you've got some great stories of people that have been touched by it.
Yes. I think, you work in media, Scott, and so you know the importance of telling authentic stories and being represented, and that's what it's about. I think one of the biggest and most divisive things that we have is media, and at the same time, if it's used the correct way, it allows us to see each other and ourselves, in more authentic and positive lights. And so rather than complain about the things that I see and that we see that we know divide us, I think it's important that we create the stories that we know will inform and uplift and entertain.
Exactly. And you were, I mean, before the infamous slap, I mean, you had gotten into an altercation a week before the Academy Awards in Oakland, kind of the OG of heckling a comedian, and handled it so well, went right on with the show. And since then, we've seen Dave Chappelle and other people talk about it. How do you feel the environment has been? I mean, you can handle yourself obviously very well, DC boy that you are, but how do you see that happening in today's comedic world?
Oh, that's a that's a bit complicated. I don't try to I try not to be too overly critical of society, but at the same time, I think we have to examine society. And so we are in a very interesting time where people are very overly sensitive. Uh, People lack a certain emotional control that I think we once had, and it was because we were having the conversations and experiencing each other as human beings in a way that kept us a lot more healthy and a bit more in balance as society. And because of the internet and because of how media portrays us to each other sometimes, I think, and because a lot of us are projecting kind of these false images of ourselves through social media, it kind of has made us forget that we're all human. And so with things like cancel culture,
Right.
it's interesting to live in a day where you can be ostracized for having an opinion that it may not be popular, and I got in some trouble recently. you know, and a lot of the opinions, you can get in trouble now if you have an opinion that's rooted in common sense. There's a lot of extremism going on. And so as a result of that, people are hypersensitive to things like comedy, which kind of hold up a mirror to society. And so, when people have to look at something like comedy and have reflected back at them the dysfunction that exists, I can imagine if you have not found a way to maintain a healthy sense of humor throughout the chaos, you will be offended. And so I think history is a bit cyclical in that we're back in the 60s again. 50s and 60s where everything was censored. Nobody could say anything. And so we had Lenny Bruce and folks like that. And we're going to transition back to a time where people are going to get fed up with the BS and are going to, hear each other express authentic views and opinions and start back getting along enough again to laugh together.
And things are moving fast. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, not too much, but I mean, back then trans was not that much of a thing. It was more drag queens and transvestite, and that we didn't know how that goes. The pronoun thing, which, like you said, you got just some issues that we're educating ourselves still, right? I mean, I don't know all that stuff that's going on in that, and it's real important that we kind of speak our truth, because I think some of it is great and I think some of it's ridiculous. But that's my opinion, and to the people that it affects, I'm sure it's very real. How do you feel about all of our learning curve that we have to do as LGBT folk?
Um, I say all the time, and I some of the community got upset, and that's fine. It's impossible not to love me. When those people see me again, they'll fall in love. But the truth is the truth, and I recognize there are some people in our community who really need that, who really need to have those parts of their identity validated and recognized in that way. But on the other hand, we have to be honest about the ridiculousness that exists around somebody who looks like you or me walking into a woman's restroom and being demanded to be recognized as a she/her when there's no effort to be a she/her, and not understand how, if we in the LGBTQ community, a lot of us don't condone that. I mean, because it doesn't make sense. And we
No,
don't understand the psychology of it. And we're in the community with these folks. If people don't have a gay friend and have no concept of anything, LGBTQ pronouns, whatever, of course, there's going to be some resistance towards it. And it also doesn't help that we live in a time now where if you say, okay, you just basically introduced yourself as a Starbucks order because, you
right.
know, I'm a grande skim latte, two Splendid extra stirred, they, them, Z-Zer, and you like, hold on, what? Okay, now I got questions. And then they go, oh, well, you got to educate yourself. It's not my job to educate you. How are people going to learn any of this? And so I think what some of the folks need to understand is, and I know personally, I hold space for everybody's dignity and humanity, and I can tell by our interactions that you do the same thing. But when we're talking about a thing, a specific behavior, you have to recognize how it can be divisive.
Right. And I mean, you've come that firsthand through challenge and triumphs of being a Black queer artist, I'm sure. I mean, there's got to have been times where it was just not understood that everyone thinks of Black gay man as a hyper masculine always, and there's on the spectrum as much as everybody else. So I'm sure you had to kind of um, not educate other people, but just let people have their opinions of what they were, right?
Um, I think it's a little different. And to be honest, certain things about pronouns can be a bit annoying. Um, because and condescending at times, depending on who you're dealing with. Uh, like again, with the whole and everything is everything needs to be a conversation. Like if you go, oh well, I prefer to wear the color blue. Oh well, you need to understand the patriarchy of the this and that and your privilege, and I'm just like, it's a color. you know, um, because of the internet again, and because it's something that people find a little touchy for us to be able to make fun of. I think if we could make fun of it, that would make it a lot easier. But people again, I just did two shows this weekend, and the audiences are really uptight, and you can feel that. Um, I think the difference is when we were doing things like fighting for gay marriage and living through the AIDS epidemic, which I was a kid when that was happening, but I saw it. Um, we understood the importance of representing ourselves. We understood the importance of having those conversations and bridging those gaps. And so we got a lot more LGBTQ acceptance because people recognized that they had, a gay son or a gay friend or a gay pastor or somebody who, worked at their job and there was a sense of relatability because we saw each other's humanity. Whereas with the pronouns thing, it's almost an invalidation of one person's humanity so that the other person can have a sense of self. And that's dysfunction. And so we have to find the levity in that, and maybe some compromise somewhere.
Well said. I agree 100%. What can you share as what you think might be a pivotal moment in your career where you felt like you were making a significant impact on your LGBTQ community?
Mm. I think I'm still having those pivotal moments. Just like I think it was last week or something like that. I got on Instagram, and the queer tea had randomly tagged me and said that I was one of the 8. They recognized me as like one of the 8 queer comedians who set the stage for modern queer comedy. And I'm not a very braggadocious person, but I have contributed very greatly to the representation of, Black queer and queer comedians of color in this industry. There are a lot of queer comedians of color who are coming up now who, um, I know that I influenced. And so, um, there this is just me being honest. There's a part of me a few years back that would have been, I guess, threatened by that, because there are a lot of accomplishments I still would like to have and really experience. And I saw some of the younger folks move on to things that I had been working towards for years, but that made me grow up in a lot of really wonderful ways. And so I think because of that, because the best is still yet to come, I think I'm still pivoting, and again, able to show up for others in a way that would have been very helpful if I would have had it.
There we go. And like I said, we talked about it a little bit ago. You are really contributing to discussion through your YouTube channel. I mean, you made that great film that I want to talk about, Love the One You're With. You
Yes,
wrote and produced. I mean, fantastic piece of work. In fact, we're going to play the preview for it now. We're going to play the trailer for it real quick. So let's play that and we'll talk about it on the other side, okay?
yes.
Life has a funny way of showing you your true colors. If love was an actual person, I swear things would be different.
I chose to take care of this one because you can control yourself. Besides, I'm really happy. It's been 5 months.
5 months, and I thought I was your best friend. Way to break the news to a bitch.
You sure know how to keep things interesting.
What I do?
You tell me.
Oh, shit.
Wait a goddamn minute. This is my son. You can't be hitting on my son. I will fuck you up.
Can you honestly ask yourself, are you worthy of unconditional love? Because I'm still trying to figure that out.
All right, we are back. That was Love the One You're With, which my guest today, Sampson McCormick, wrote, executive produced, had a part in. Talk about the filmmaking and what that experience was like.
Oh, it was a great experience. I felt spirit guiding me through it the entire time that we worked on it. I remember writing it. I wrote it. I forgot it took me maybe 2 or 3 months to write that script. I wrote it on my bedroom floor. And it was just a labor of love. And it just flowed. And so when we started filming it, we shot it during COVID. And so, we were supposed to be in the house. And, we snuck and rented some Airbnbs, and there were some other venues that we were able to rent, like the coffee shop where we did the coffee shop scenes in. They let us rent it. And some sort of way we pulled it off. I will say, so we shot the entire film and then we sat down to edit it. And when we sat down to edit it, the entire thing had disappeared.
Oh no.
So
That
I freaked out. I called everybody. I'm like, I will pay you, but we got to do this again. And so I think we shot it again in three more days. And so
oh
with
my
the
goodness.
with the original shoot and the reshoot, it took us about a week. And I just looked at it as, even though I liked what we did the first time, I just looked at it as since I looked at it as since we were in the middle of COVID and weren't able to have table reads in person, we were doing it on Zoom. I just looked at the first recording as a bit of a dress rehearsal.
Nice. I like that. Very cool. And you've gone on B-Boy Blues. You have Rue Blues you're directing. I mean, that's got to be kind of exciting step forward. How's that
Yes,
experience been?
it was beautiful. So Donnie Hugh Frazier, he's done two of my films. He did another film that I did called Party and Play. And then he did Love the One You're With, and I'm gonna put him in some other stuff down the line. He maybe we were out or something, or maybe he may have texted me or something, and he said, I have an idea for a film, and so I want to write it, and I want you to be involved. And I said, well, I will direct it. And that was a great experience because, again, I am very much a creative visionary. I can look at something and I know, what it needs, and I'm able to like really I'm able to be resourceful if I need to, and then if I have everything that I need, even better. And
Nice.
so thankfully for that, we had everything that we needed. And we had a couple of first time actors on set who were really nervous, and I was able to identify right away, what would help them turn in their best work considering the circumstances. And so we were able to do that. We got some solid performances out of them. And it had some great writing, and I was able to come in and add a much deeper comedic element to it. And so it really touched on some pretty intense themes, around sexual assault and sexual health and things like that. And we were able to add the humor and the levity to cushion some very intense messages. And so that was just another great experience. Um, and I will add, I'm very optimistic about the impact that I will be making on not just Black queer film, but film overall.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. And like I said, the YouTube channel, we're talking tens of thousands of views for that and addressing some serious subjects. I mean, Black gay relationships, not talked about much out anywhere else, entertainment world. What kind of drew you to those fields, and how has that process been for you?
So the speaking about Black gay love, I recognize that in media, and I'm happy for all the different ways that it shows up. But a lot of times when it comes to Black gay men being loved and being in relationship, a lot of times the focus is on interracial relationships, and that's okay too. But I think culturally, it is important for Black gay men to understand the different ways that we navigate love together, and in that cultural sense, because a lot of us, we didn't get a blueprint. A lot of our forefathers, they transitioned during the AIDS epidemic, and a lot of them, because of the chaos that takes place in gay clubs, they stay home. So we don't get a lot of opportunities to speak with our elders. And also, again, I think just not really having a blueprint for what love looks like for us, Um, I think also being in a society where we are told constantly all the reasons why we don't deserve love or can't have love, it is important for us to see that it is possible. And also, you know, even though I personally am more traditional, uh, whether you are, you know, polyamorous or want to have an open relationship or you're in the BDSM community or whatever, you deserve love and you can find it wherever you are.
Well said, my friend. I love that. We're running out of time. Talk about where you see if you could blueprint your own life out here, because nobody has total control. But do you see yourself more in front and behind the camera? Do you like gigging it still? I mean, that's hard work traveling the country these days. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years from now?
Oh, I definitely am going to win a couple of NAACP awards. I'm really looking forward to that. Even though the climate of the country is a bit tense in regards to how it receives comedy, there's a certain joy that I still get whenever I tour and I'm with an audience. There is a certain thing that I know that I am tasked with giving to an audience. I also recognize that I have a I guess it's an ability to communicate both because I'm not super liberal. I think I'm more moderate and very common sense based and grounded, so I can speak to people who are liberal because that's where you see more black and gay and trans and those sort of folks. But a lot of my gigs are also in places like Kansas and Montana and Florida and you know Arizona. I go to a lot of places where black gay folks go to vacation at all the time.
Right? Oh
and
my God, I love it.
and I have a way of connecting with those folks. And I recognize this and I get a little pushback for saying this. But you know, being a black gay man and I don't always get to bring, you know, Vanja or I have another woman who travels with me sometimes. Uh, Diane travels with me sometimes, and Kai travels with me sometimes. And then other times I have to go by myself. And I think when you travel alone, you're more observant. You're more, you have to kind of keep eyes in the back of your head. You have to be a bit more careful because I do recognize when I'm in places like Alabama, you know, I still hear some of the talks that I got growing up. Like, you know, if I rent a car, I'm not going to get a bright red car when I'm in Alabama. Get, you know, a gray car and I'm going to drive the speed limit and stuff like that. But what I recognize is that people are not as racist or homophobic or any of those things as we're constantly told that they are. And I think that I'm a very loving person, I guess. You know, I don't like to use that word. I wish we were like I think the Greeks, I think they have 12 or 14 different definitions for love.
Mhm.
And I naturally have been gifted with a strong spirit of familial love. I'm told often when people meet me that I make them feel like they're home. And so, you know, when I meet people in places like Montana and Texas, and there are a lot of rednecks, and they come out to my shows and they laugh and have a great time. And I also think I'm not so reactive. Like I can tell when somebody's being um, uh, hateful, but I can also tell when somebody's trying and maybe they may not say something right and people automatically react and go, oh, this person is racist. And sometimes people aren't racist. Sometimes people, they don't, it's a cultural disconnect, you know, or people have to overcome their own biases. And so I recognize that I have a lot more grace than maybe the typical Black person or Black queer person. And so I think it's important to go out and bridge those gaps. And the fact that I can laugh with people and do that, I think it plants seeds, and it's just important for us to do that. So that's probably the only reason I would never stop touring. Uh, but the political correctness in the country has made it a bit more challenging, but I'm really good at comedy, so I'm built for the challenge.
Yes, you are. And I think we talked about in 2016, you're also very spiritually driven too. You have a strong spiritual side to you. And I'm sure, I don't know if that has evolved through these last 7 years we haven't talked, but that's got to help kind of center you as well, right?
It does. That is a conversation you and I would have to go out and have lunch over. But
Agreed.
you know, some of the things that I've had to overcome, and some of the circumstances that I've been met with, um, and still been required to keep a strong human spirit, definitely is evidence of, of something stronger than I am, and a purpose much bigger than I am. And because I tell people all the time, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, why, why do I keep doing this? And I mean, even with what you're doing, I'm pretty sure sometimes you're just like it's something you have to wrestle with sometimes. But um, you know, you always get the affirmations that you need. Um, for instance, recently I got in a little trouble over just talking about pronouns, honestly. And I think I said something that many people think, but these days, if you are on record for an opinion, you know, some people are afraid they might lose their job or whatever, you know, and it's also a little bit easier to lose friends just because you disagree.
Very true.
And
Very true.
and I think that can be scary for a lot of people because we all want to belong to something, you know, and we are socially driven and community driven folks, most of us. And so a lot of people won't speak up, but I got in some trouble because I was on a television show and I was just saying, you know, this is the way I think people look at this, and I think it's important to be transparent about it. And a lot of the LGBTQ community, I mean, got on Twitter and they just said some really horrible things to it about me. And it really, and I'm still dealing with that. That was over a month ago, but it really, I felt betrayed, because I have shown up for the community in so many ways. And, you know, sometimes you do work and people kind of overlook that, but you do this one thing and they make sure they share it. You know, they make sure they talk about it, they make sure they try to get you canceled. And um there's a much deeper conversation behind that too. We got to go to lunch, Scott. But
I'm liking that. Yeah, well, definitely. Well, we got to get you on your tour bus going through Cleveland or Pittsburgh. I'm
okay,
right next to both of those. So
okay,
otherwise, I'll come up and visit you in SoCal when I'm up, or NorCal. I'm up there next, but definitely.
yeah, we'll do that. But that is that's a lot to deal with. Um, you know, especially already in our community where we deal with so many things. And just because I'm an entertainer and I get to do all these cool things that make me exempt. And so one of the great things about that was, you know, I was kind of like, you know, should I keep telling the truth about this? Should I keep being authentic about this? And you know, you'll get the validation or the affirmation that you need. Like I would be walking down the street and I would run into somebody I didn't know at all, you might be in the grocery store or something and run into some little old lady who tells you, "Oh, you have a beautiful spirit. I hope you're doing okay. Can I hug you?" Somebody you don't know.
Right.
Or you'll get a call from a friend who says, "Hey, I'm thinking about you," or I had friends text me, was like, "I saw what happened to you online. We agree. We can't say anything, but thank you for your courage." And so, you get what you need.
There you go. Yeah, I think everyone has little pockets of their culture that likes to eat their own. I mean, we've all come across that, as you said, cancel culture and everything else. But um, you can't have it both ways. You can't be authentic, and you can't then go about and censor yourself all the time too. You have to speak your truth and just hope that people understand the love and the meaning and everything behind it, right?
You hope so, and you have to be okay with them also not. And so I know in that particular experience, it was a test of courage in many different ways. But also, um, I think you have to examine everything that you do, which I examine everything that I do, and I know that ultimately, and I noticed this too since that incident. A lot more non-binary people have been coming to my shows, and a few more trans folks. And it's because some of them are curious because that was the first time they'd seen anything, and they were like, "Well, we want to come hear what else you got to say." And then many others were coming because they said, "Well, we looked at some of your other stuff, and we recognize you always just talk openly and honestly, and we wanted to come check you out." And I think when you do things, I think if you do things with negative intent, then that's what you will have. But I do believe that if you're just being honest and um, and you mean well, it always works out.
Agreed, agreed. Well, Samson, it's been great. I know we promised just to do about 30 minutes. We've gone a little bit over. Let everyone know where they can find you on social media. And do you have any gigs coming up in Pride Month or anything that we should know about?
Oh, well, again, thank you, Scott, for inviting me back. I appreciate you. What you do is so important, and you're so valuable to the community. And so, again, thank you very much. I encourage anyone who's watching or listening to check out YouTube. Just get on YouTube, look up Sampson McCormick. We do some great conversations just around love and self-acceptance and identity. We talk about sex. That's a lot of fun. We talk about family. Um, and in an age where I think people are disassociated away from authenticity. We do a lot of that in that space. And so if you're looking for a space where you won't be judged, because we understand the importance of showing up as a real human, you can bring all parts of yourself to my YouTube channel, and you may see parts of yourself because we have some great people there. So Sampson McCormick on YouTube. Also, stand-up comedies on there. I have my most recent comedy special is Church Boy. That came out in 2019. So that was what, 4 years ago? 19, 20, 20. It looks like I'm gonna have to record another one soon. uh, but that one's on there, and a few other comedy specials are on there. Another film I did called A Different Direction is on there. And if you're looking for movie night, if you have a boo, or if you just have some popcorn and you want to eat it and watch something fun, love the one you're with on Amazon Prime, and also Party and Play on Amazon Prime, and B-Boy Blues on BET Plus. So a lot of great content that will make you laugh, is genuinely funny, and it will make you feel good that you took the time to watch it.
Yes, you will. We'll put some links right down below here. Samson, we're not going to wait 7 years next time. I appreciate so much having you on. Thank you for speaking such great words of wisdom. And I appreciate having you on, my friend. It's just been a fantastic conversation.
Yes, always. It's always wonderful.
All right, stay on the line for me, guys. This is Sampson McCormick. Be sure to check out the links before. Check out that YouTube page. If you have a chance, if he's gigging near you, be sure to look for tickets there. And you're listening to Left of Str8 Show right here on the Left of Str8 Radio Network. Stay on the line, Samson. We'll be back in just a little bit. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Left of Str8 Show. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast distributor, and please give us a 5-star rating so more listeners can find us. You can follow us on social media, and be sure to check out our website, www.leftofstraightradio.com, for contests and other news and information. See you next week.